supervisor. Those are one of those that taught me excellence in broadcasting and, of course, journalism. I'm talking about the first female professor of mass communication in the Department of Mass Communication, University of Lagos, Professor Abigail Ogweezy. She supervised my MSc thesis, and of course, I appreciated it. Welcome to the platform.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I also have here, I want to believe that the associate professor Grace Nwagbara should be online. I'm not too sure. She's of the Department of Communication Arts, University of Okay, we move on. I also have here engineer Abiola Ajibola. He's the immediate past. Is the immediate past. Okay, I think all the hosts should admin, please mute the mic of all the participants now so that they can hear me. And of course, engineer Abiola Ajibola is the immediate past director of the National Broadcast Academy. Of course, National Broadcast Academy is the training arm of the Federal Radio Corporation of Nigeria. I just left it to join University of Lagos. That's where, top journalists in this country, I'm talking about broadcast journalists that train. I used to train journalists there in the media production department. Welcome, sir. I also have a veteran news, the first generation veteran, news core reader in this country. I'm talking about Mrs Bimbo Oloyede. Mrs Bimbo Oloyede used to be on NTA. She used to be Bimbo Robot before she got married to the producer of the then village headmaster, late Mr. Tunde Oloyede. Welcome, Mrs. O. That's how we call her. Mrs. O, are you there? Welcome. We also have Mr. Shamshedeen Tiamuyi. Mr. Shamshedeen Tiamuyi taught me the experiential part of journalism in Radio Nigeria. He is the former deputy director, news. Okay, gentlemen, welcome. And of course, some students have hooked on, some students have joined the platform. Some of my students, where I taught them, and some members of the public are also joining us right now. And I've also joined. Of course, the essence of this gathering is to make sure that we take one part of journalistic skill and make it flowery, make it, very well, so that at the end of the day, our journalists can go out there and stand the test of time. We want to look at the art of interview. And of course, what is going to happen is that I'm going to leave the floor I'm going to call the panelists. They will talk for 6 minutes in the area which we have given them, have assigned to them. And of course, if you have any question to ask any of them, so what you do is that you direct the question to the panelists that answered or that treated that area of expertise. Now, I want to first start from, please, can the admin unmute the mic of the microphone of Mr. Ray Ekpu, and of course, let him just talk to us what interview is all about. Because as journalists, I found out that some journalists, some of them didn't read mass communication like all that. You read mass communication from your first degree to the second degree to the third degree, or whatever, or you've been doing it, maybe you read one course and you came into journalism. So, sir, I put the question across to you. What is interview? Because some people might say, I know what interview is. What do you think is this art of interview, sir?
I hope it's not on mute. Oh my God.
Please, let's make sure that Let's make
try to
sure
make sure.
that let's make sure that Mr. Ray Ekpu's mic is on mute so that he can bring
Yeah,
his contribution to the public.
let's see. I can find him. You know what?
Okay, let's move on. If he's not there, maybe he will join us later. Can we listen to Professor Chuka Onwumechili? He's going to be talking to us for 6 minutes on journalistic standards. Some of us might not know the standards. Some of us just assume. He's going to be talking to us for 6 minutes, the journalistic standards that can stand Nigerian journalists out in the international scene. What can make us command respect, out there in the world? Professor Chuka, can you hear me?
Hear you. I can hear
Okay.
you.
Okay.
One of the things I would say is, for me, I like to look at this in a more expansive way, which is that while we talk about journalism standards, we also must understand that the world is changing. The world is not static. What I mean by this is that several years ago, of course, we knew that there was a control of access to the masses in terms of delivering news. That's why we then had the old mass media, or what we would call legacy mass media, where you could control, you had people who edited stuff, and you could control what goes out to the masses. But that's not the world we are living in today. The world we are living in today is one in which those masses, or just anyone, can basically talk to every other person. So we are in a world of social media. So these are things we have to understand. So when I talk about journalistic standards that are out there, I'm basically talking about the old media, the traditional media, which basically is changed over time. And those standards, basically, there are things we have to bear in mind. One is that there is a search to make sure that the public understands that what they are getting is credible. That's one of the things, credibility. Then we have to think about that there is also fairness, and that what we're also producing is also accurate. These are some of the standards that are out there. And to do this, you then, of course, have to train people, because ordinarily people wouldn't know these standards. And I think the issue that we run into, which you had pointed out, the thing that brings all of us together, is that there is some allegation that there is a violation of this standard in terms of the conflict with Fani-Kayode. Though, I mean, in reality, there are some people who would question whether, in fact, this was violated or not. But the reality is that in order to then train journalists to make sure that these standards are maintained, that I'm talking about traditional journalists here, we have to be very careful in one of the things is being courteous, particularly we are in a different culture. If we are talking about our African culture, there is certain respect that you've got to give to people. There are different people who would have that kind of respect. Perhaps somebody who's got some status, perhaps somebody who's older, but there is a certain respect in terms of how you question them. But ultimately, whether you've got to give that respect or you don't have to give that respect, the most important thing is that we've got to reach the truth. We've got to find the truth, and questions must be asked. It doesn't matter who that person is, we still got to ask the question. The thing for us then is just simply, how do we approach asking this question? To me, I think in a short form, that is what I would like to talk about here. I could get into details about the issue about training journalists to do this, but I don't know that that's what you want me to do at this time.
Are you in?
Hello?
Okay, let me just ask how will this journalistic standard help in the art of interview, sir?
I think that one of them, there's a lot of ways that it could help in the art of interviewing. One is that if you know what those standards are, then you know how you're going to ask those questions. In terms of interviews, in order to, you're thinking about what does the public need to know? But you also have to ask, how do I ask those questions in order to be able to generate the kind of answers that the public is seeking for a particular issue? And these are some of the things you have to bear in mind as you try to get the information that you want to get on this particular, on any issue at all. I know that what
okay, sir.
This.
Okay, it means that there's a particular way you can ask that question so that you can elicit the kind of response that you need.
Exactly, but I also believe this. I think one of the things we have to be careful about is, yes, we train journalists to ask questions in a certain way, so to get the kind of response that you wish to get. But ultimately, the most important thing is that there's got to be that response, because that's what the public needs to know. It doesn't matter who that person is that's being asked that question, whether it's the president, you need answers to that question. Yeah, it's one thing to ask a question in a particular way, and that's why we go through this training, but we also have to understand that because of the change in the mediascape itself, that you're going to get people who are not traditionally trained in terms of the journalistic way of asking questions that will ask these questions.
Okay, so it's like you were going to say something before I butt in there. Sorry for doing that. You still want to bear your mind?
No, you could go ahead. I'll return to
okay, it's okay. Now, let's bring in Professor Wlson. And of course, I don't know whether he has been able to join right now. Professor Wlson is just going to be talking with us on a jiffy about the scenario of case study, during interviews. Professor Wlson, can you hear me? Professor Wlson, can you hear me? No, he's not there. Okay, let's go on. Now, let's bring in Professor Abigail Ogweezy. When you are talking about standards, when she was supervising my MSc, I think, she's my friend, but I tell you what, I corrected my work more than 10 times. And today I can probably tell you that, yes, she didn't say no, when I just go and submit. She made me correct my work to the standard that is, she said, take that work to anywhere, it will stand the test of time, and I can tell you today that I'm better off. She's known for quality, she's known for standard. And of course, she's going to be talking to us about the need for the retraining of journalists. Ma, can you have the floor?
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, all. Like Professor Onwumechili said, what brought us together is Fani-Kayode versus the Daily Trust journalist. The reality is that interview, as we all know, it's a data gathering technique using communication. So, the journalist is a conversation between a known source, and the journalist on one hand. And these things, they require techniques. Sometimes people are too direct, some journalists, when they ask questions. And like you rightly pointed out, the moderator, that some of them didn't really go through any formal training. I recall when you were introducing yourself, you talked about all the people that, that have tutored you, whether in the classroom or in the industry. And so, like I keep telling students, nobody's going to teach you one thing and it remains a blueprint for life, because our profession is very dynamic. And because our profession is very dynamic, you continue to reskill as you move on. Now we have journalists, because there are issues. Some of them don't even do research before they get into the field. And so before you approach anybody, you should actually profile that person. It's the same thing we teach in marketing communications, where you have to profile your audience. You have to profile the people you are dealing with. Anybody going to meet Femi Fani-Kayode, we know that is somewhat an erratic person. And so to ask somebody like that a question, you'll be the greatest undoing to yourself to go in an attack manner. You are not likely to have a good day with him. But as a journalist, if really you are trained and experienced, nobody can get you off your feet. you know, you will continue to manage the situation. So there are journalistic skills that you must acquire, or interviewing skills. You must also, beyond getting the skills, you must know the temperament of the person that you are dealing with. You know, sometimes journalists come to me and they tell me, said, "Ma, I've come to interview you." I said, "Okay, how may I help you?" They will tell me to introduce myself. You don't even know me, and you are coming to ask me any question. So how do you know I'm the right source in the first instance? So we expect a lot of preparation, a lot of research to have gone into the work. And you know, generally you have to start dealing with all the issues gradually. You can tackle me, like you said, "Oh, I will not take no for an answer." Any student that I've taught or I've supervised, we know I will not take no for an answer. Like I keep telling them, you came here to be trained and I will do my job. You can't blackmail me into my not doing my job. So no source can blackmail a journalist into a journalist not doing his or her job. And I will explain to you why you must go and do what I've asked you to do. It's for your good and my good. So sometimes some of them too have been well trained in the classroom, and when they get into the industry, they don't retrain them. And like Professor Onwumechili said, there are emerging trends. Trends are changing. Our profession is highly, highly dynamic. We used to deal with generally passive audience because we control what we bring out. But right now we are co-creators. We are co-creators. So you can't just take anybody for granted, whether you're a professional or non-professional. And that's why we have a very strong brand of journalism now. We refer to as citizen journalism. A journalist, a trained journalist or a professional who is not what his or her onion gets into the field, and you are not prepared, you don't continue to risk it, you don't read, you don't research, you know, the audience are likely going to, your audiences will likely rubbish that person. So I'm happy that we're talking about this. I'm talking about those of them who come out. You know why people can talk to journalists anyhow? They can talk to them anyhow because we have not packaged ourselves well in dealing with the public. Journalism is a very noble profession. And when anybody's addressing you, you know, it should address you properly, should address you in the right manner, because some have so cheapened themselves. And that is why you can't go to a court and talk to the magistrate or the jury like that. And journalists were the fourth estate of the realm. So how come anybody will see us and talk us down? We should begin to raise some ethical questions. And so there is a potpourri of issues that we have to deal with when we use that Fani-Kayode's case, yes, that case as an entry point into our discussion. So I'll rest my case for now. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Prof. That's a very good one. And of course, I want to believe that some of our students are also taking notes. I think that we have some of our students from the National Broadcast Academy, University of Lagos, I think Lagos Business School, and some other factory knowledge around Nigeria. Then I'm also calling on Dr. Grace Nwagbara. You know, you can imagine she's in the arts, the communication art department, but you know, her hands are very good in terms of media research and all of that. And of course, she's going to be talking to us in just a line on the need for research in the place of interview. Please, at the admin, can you unmute her mic so that she can share her thoughts in this area? Please, I want to advise the panelists to stay put because very soon we're going to be done, so that those that are taking note, if they have any question to ask in that area, what you just shared, so that they can get across to you. Please, Associate Professor Grace Nwagbara, can you have the floor? I think our mic is still muted. I mean, our mic is still muted. Can you please unmute our mic? Hello? I mean, you just muted everybody's mic. Unmute the mic now.
All right, muted. They have to unmute themselves.
Okay, please unmute it yourself. You see a red stuff. You see a red icon, you know, crossing the mic. You know, the sound of the microphone. Just punch it. It will unmute it.
Let me look at the name, so let's see if we can.
I think the admin can do that. The admin can unmute. The admin can. Oh, we are also privileged to have Leonard Heron. Leonard is also the BBC is I think he's the chief BBC trainer in Nigeria. He has trained me while I was doing my BBC training. Welcome, Mr. Arrow. Okay, while we are waiting for Associate Professor Grace Nwagbara to be able to get in tune with with the technicalities, I also called on Engineer Abiola Ajibola. Engineer Abiola Ajibola is the immediate past director of the National Broadcast Academy. He's going to be talking to us on the need for training. He has trained a lot of journalists in Nigeria, in Nigeria, West Africa, and of course the rest of the world. Please welcome, he's my former boss, please welcome to the platform, Mr. Ajibola, Engineer Ajibola, are you there?
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. A pleasure seeing everyone on this platform. I want to appreciate the effort of Dr. Unwana. I want to appreciate your effort in this direction, trying to bring the importance of training to our media personnel in Nigeria. Indeed, what happened between Fani-Kayode and the Daily Trust staff brought all of us here. And erroneously, many of us had blamed Fani-Kayode for his utterances. Not really with any part of the incident. We decided to ignore the play by the journalist himself that culminated into that show of shame, if I may call it that way. But sincerely, I want to say that many of our broadcasts, particularly, or many of our media organizations, have not been taking training very important. The art of training and retraining becomes very, very key. Not only important, but it's a necessity, because we are in just like Professor Abigail said, we are in such a dynamic environment that necessitates us to be on our guard all the time. There are a lot of resources available to many of these our staff, many of these our journalists, whereby even if the organization is not considering training for them, they can also train themselves. All the platforms, the resources are there online. People can see what is happening in other clients. They can use that as a kind of a standard to measure up their own, standard too. So the issue of training is very important, so that the journalists can be reminded often about the tenets of their profession. You don't just go into a profession and think that you can do anything or say anything that you like, because you are dealing with the members of the public. So the issue of training is, like I said, very important. In journalism, the tenets are so obvious that they must keep to. The issue of objectivity, balance, and being virtual, and fairness in your conduct, is very important to all our journalists. The choice of words when you are carrying out interviews is very important. Like what happened that day, there are better ways of, presenting that, question, that will not, invite such a, the response that the FFK gave. A lot of options you have employed, but But because he did not even prepare for the press conference, he just went there and bankroll is, when you say bankroll, bankroll is a derogative word. A derogative word. Something like funding maybe would have been better. Are you who's funding this trip, for example, now? That would have been much better than bankroll. Bankroll. I mean, bankroll is such an emotive, word that when you go deep down, it can aggravate, it can, get somebody annoyed that, like it happened that day. So I believe our journalists will begin to learn from exactly what happened that day, and they will begin to consider training as very important to the success of their profession.
Thank you so much, sir.
I think maybe a lot of benefits are there, but maybe by the time we are on in this webinar, we come to tell us about the benefits of training and retraining. Thank you very much.
Okay, all right, thank you so much, sir. Please, can the admin, I know she's one of my students, Fani-Kayode, can you mute your this thing for now? I think the background noise, maybe you are listening to traffic radio. I'm also hearing some comments there to mute the thing there, so that we can hear others. Now, thank you so much, sir. I want to believe that I'm told that Mr. Ray Ekpu, a veteran print journalist and of course co-founder of the defunct Newswatch, is back online. So are you there? Hello, are you there? Okay, let's move on. Then let's also welcome Dr. Grace Nwagbara. I mentioned her name, earlier. Dr. Grace Nwagbara, we want to hear your take. Please, can you share can you give us your take? The floor is yours now.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm glad to share with you on this platform. Can you all hear me?
We can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm glad to be on this platform to share knowledge and experience with colleagues and then with students. We know that interview, as it is a means to gather information. To me, interview is both an instrument for information gathering and a process. Instrument in the sense that that is what you will use, or a journalist will use, to be able to get information or collect data. The same thing with someone in the academia who is conducting a research, that the person uses interview to be able to get information. Then interview as a process, because there are steps to follow to be able to arrive at the end or to be able to achieve your end. Sometimes when we talk about research, people look at it as one very difficult thing to do. We know of what happened between the Daily Trust journalist and the person in question, what in short that brought us together. If that young man had had time to prepare for the interview, maybe it wouldn't have sounded the way it did. And if he had also had time to, as Professor Ogweezy said, if he had had time to do a profiling, know who he was going to interview, and to be able to know that this is this man, this is the way he sees things, and this is his temperament, and this is the possible things that could come out of him, it may not have taken the shape it took. So I think journalists, some of them go to interview people without really preparing. Preparation is very important. Go back, ask questions. Go back, study. In short, these days, information is at our beck and call. You can get information just at the touch of a button. So by the time you go to interview someone, be in the position of knowledge. Be sure you know more than the person knows somehow on that subject matter, so that you will be at an advantage. But when you have not done a proper search for information, and you just go to interview with what you think you know or you have seen. You have not consulted, you have not met anybody to ask, oh, do you know this person? Do you know this subject? What of if I did it this way? What of if I asked this kind of question? What would be the outcome? And then the person just sets out and then goes to interview and begins to ask sometimes very dumb and stupid questions, and which could even be offensive to the interviewee, like the one we are talking about. So there is need for journalists to sit back and prepare. Take a trip to, if possible, where the interview would hold first before you get there. You take a trip, look at the situation, look at things around, and then you're able to take one or two things back. And then those will form the questions you ask. And if you are also talking from the point of authority, the interview will respect you. The person will know that, oh, we are dealing with someone who knows. But when you come sounding as if you are looking up to the interview for everything, then it means you're really on the wrong path. And then besides, we also know that when you want to interview somebody, please don't start with the very difficult question. Start with something that could get the interviewee relaxed, and then you establish some kind of camaraderie with the person. That is some rapprochement, as the French people will call it. You have this kind of understanding, and the person feels relaxed in your presence. And then when you ask questions, the person can also answer. But when you ask very difficult questions or questions that will put the person on the edge, you're already putting him off. He sees you as an enemy, or maybe he sees you as coming from the point of view of being hostile. And then he too puts up a defense. And that defense is like, well, whatever he tells me, I'll either say no comments, or I'll either say, well, another question, or something like that. So I think journalists should learn to go back and search for information first and prepare themselves first before they go to interview anyone. Look for the right words to use. As someone had mentioned in this webinar, that he probably wouldn't have said bankroll. There are other ways that question could have been asked without sounding that offensive. There are words, and that is also why journalists should be masters of words.
Yeah, that's
and
true,
read widely to be able to know what alternatives there are. If I can't use this word, what other alternative can I use? If I use this, will it sound offensive? If I use this word, how would the person feel? There are several synonyms that could help make an interview to run smoothly, apart from the preparation that we had talked about. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ma. I know you have a lot to, to offer in terms of interview, because she taught me a research methodology while I was doing my PhD. So thank you very much. If there's need, you can always come in to clarify issues. And of course, I understand that our friend and of course our bold colleague that from the Daily Trust, I commended his effort, his patience, his humility, and of course, is everything in handling the FFK encounter that day. And I can only pray that you learn more. And of course, everybody commended you that you didn't respond, you didn't charge back, and all of that. I said, God bless you. And of course, I understand that he's on the platform right now, that refined gentleman in terms of character and everything. He's doing, that he's on the webinar with us right now. I want to believe that he's also getting one or two things from the panelists. Of course, let's move on. The next person that would come on board right now is the Lagos State, is the president, Lagos State chapter of the Nigerian Union of Journalists. I'm talking about Miss Dr. Qasim Akinreti, a former colleague. While I was working with Nigeria, he was working, he's still working with Voice of Nigeria, is presently the chairman, the president of the Lagos State chapter of the Nigerian Union of Journalists. Welcome, sir. Please, you'll be talking to us about the need, the welfare, the place of welfare for journalists, how this can affect reportage, because I understand that some media owners are also logging into this webinar so that we can have your feel of experiential thoughts. Thank you so much, Dr. Qasim. Dr. Qasim, I forgot to tell you, is also, I think he should be Deputy Director of News right now, Voice of Nigeria. Welcome, sir.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, senior colleagues and colleagues. It's quite interesting to be part of this webinar. And but before I talk about welfare, I think I had to, one way or the other, also talked about the FKK issue and how colleagues have conducted themselves. As part of the member of the NUJ, National Executive Committee, I've actually asked for the need for us to investigate deeply our colleagues who attended that event, because an injury to one is injury to all.
Yes.
We must understand so we do are there and what eventually transpired, so that appropriately we can learn one or two things from it. Far more important, I've also learned quite some things about today on interview technique. How well, obviously, Charles Ayo will have been able to handle FKK at that very important interview. But be that as me, we all know the character of FKK.
That's true.
We are not we are quite inundated with his the way he behaves, and that of course signposts to virtually other issues that in case we were to blame our colleague. We also know that he's quite temperamental. He's a temperamental person, and of course he also believes that he can always have his way anywhere he goes. For me, that is quite very unfortunate. And from the NUJ, we've asked for apology, and I think I understand he has tendered his apology, and so be it. So let me move on straight to the issue of welfare of our members. Welfare of members is obviously paramount due to the success and professionalism of our job, because where there is no welfare, of course, professionalism will suffer the great deal. In Lagos, for example, what we have done is at every point in time to always approach the media owners that, well, for everyone that has labored for 30 days, he deserves to be paid. And of course, we have to be, look, if, we are paying or paying well. I absolutely agree with you. But what is obviously important first is for you to fulfill all your obligations. Journalists have fulfilled their obligations, getting stories for you, do some run around, do some other things, write pictures and the rest. So when it comes to you playing your own part of the bargain, you are found wanting. And what do? You encourage unethical conduct. And that is exactly what we have seen in some of the cases all around. But what is important is what in my discussion with some of media organizations, I said, look, in some cases, you don't need a crowd. I'll give an example of a typical media organization telling me that, well, our wage bill is 54 million naira every month. And I said, wow, how do you come by? You have some auxiliary workers, staff who are working for you. You don't need them. In a modern newsroom, you need fewer people, but you need technology to push most of your content appropriately. And so I argue some of this, and I said, if you want to offload, you want to set people, probably you just mean that you need to relieve them of their job. Please pay them the last check. Calculate everything they work for, and say, gentlemen, we can't cope. The company cannot cope, with the economic realities, and so we let you go. But please just have your final check and everything that's your entitlement. No, you then start a new life. And so we are in discussion with some of them in that respect. And what we also do on our own part as NUJ is also to encourage our members that, look, this profession has given us a lot of opportunities. For me, I've encouraged my colleagues to go to the academic. Go in there, read and read and read. You can be on top of your game. You can be a professor of mass communication. You can be a happy AG mass communication. You have opportunity of doing a part-time teaching. And you can be, probably you are in the areas of doing documentaries. You can be doing documentaries for some media organizations. It's not only about Nigeria. Journalism is not start all and end in all. It's a global. It gives a global opportunity. You can be doing some work for BBC, do some work for VOA if you are extremely competent. And so you don't tie your life to just 30-day make one pay issue. And another thing is when you develop your capacity, the thing is that you have what we call other stream of incomes legitimately as a media person. And that is some of the things where I'm trying to push for as the chairman of NUJ Lagos State Council. Please, I'm chairman of NUJ Lagos State Council. I'm not the president. So that I doesn't sound the red signal
chairman
to the president of the NUJ National that I'm usurping his role.
It's okay.
Chairman
right.
NUJ Lagos State Council. Thank you so much.
Chairman NUJ Lagos State Council. And I understand that my humble chairman is also seeking a re-election to that office. We wish you well, sir. And of course, I understand that Professor Wlson, please, admin should please mute the participant microphone until they are asked to talk. I understand that Professor Wlson, the erudite scholar of traditional modes of communication, is online right now. Professor Wlson, we've been expecting you. Welcome, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
And of course, yes, sir. And of course, we are waiting for you to talk with us concerning the case study. I know how case studies can be applied, just in a jiffy, about 5 minutes, how case studies can be applied, during interviews, journalistic interviews, as we are looking. The case study is the Fani-Kayode's face-off between our colleague and, of course, our student and the Fani-Kayode guy.
Yeah, thank you, Unwana. I just want to say that, well, with respect, I just listened to the last contributor who spoke on the matter of welfare. But I want to point out one aspect very quickly before I go on to talk about case studies. The management of any media organization must ensure, not just because you pay salaries, you must ensure when you send these news hounds out there to go and forage for whatever information they can get, that you must prepare them for that event. There must be some funds made available to take them to where they want to be. And if the event is going to take a very long time, there must be some funds also available for recreation. That is, if you cannot provide for such at the start of the assignment. So I think I have been very critical of colleagues who go to events and begin to scramble for things from the event organizers. But now let me go to the question of, I beg your pardon?
I said that's technically that's brown envelope. Go on, sir. Not even brown envelope alone. You also have the issue of even scrambling for real food, snacks, and all that. Wow.
Yeah. Now, so the question of case studies. I think every journalism is a very, very interesting profession because it is a profession of professions. And for any journalist to go out there to conduct an interview on a subject, that journalist must have prepared themselves to read background information about the subject, ask others, look at various sources to know about the subject, because that is important. Because if you don't know about the character, people have talked about FFK's temperamental disposition. I think that if you knew that he was temperamental, then you would be very careful about the way you pose the question. Others have said, well, it is not necessary. The journalist's role is not to make the subject comfortable. Yes, it's true. You are not there to make him comfortable, but you are there to get information. So you must provide an opportunity where you can elicit the kind of information you are looking for. And looking at studies at events and things that have taken place over time, noting them, that will help you in your interview, and you will enjoy whatever you're doing. It is not good to go into an interview and then you find yourself being faced with a brick wall because the subject is angered by your question. Then you have defeated the purpose for which you had gone to interview that subject. So I think research is very important in interviews. If you don't do background research, background checks and all that about your subject, then you are going to fail. And looking at those things, you must look at those things that the person has done over the years. And knowing that someone like FFK has been in the public glare since, at least he's been in public office since 1990 or thereabout. And we know a lot of things about him. So we should build on this. Yeah.
Okay.
So thank you.
Thank you so much. Please, you have to hold on in case somebody asks. Because some students from University of Lagos, some from National Broadcast Academy, are there, so that in case they have any questions, please admin, can you mute everybody's except? Me, everybody's microphone. Okay, let's move on now. I will call on, we are going to give the opportunity for our Daily Trust friend, as a journalist, to say something if he's still there. I understand he's on the platform. Now, we want to call on one of the Nigeria's finest voices on air. I'm talking about first generation, a veteran, first generation, network newscaster on NTR. Before she became Mrs. Oloyede, she was Miss Bimbo.
So you think that's the problem, no? That's the biggest problem.
Robert Oloyede. She's here, and she's also going to talk to us about
when I tell Father Steve do that
in interview. Welcome, ma. Please, can you unmute? Please, can you unmute the microphone of Mrs. Oloyede?
I've done that. I've done that.
Please, you are going to talk to us about the place of diction. She teaches diction, how we can, like those things that we say Wednesday.
Okay, well, good afternoon, everybody. It's nice to be
Wednesday
with you. I think I'm going to look at this from the presentation angle. I want to talk briefly about the impression that we make when we go out to conduct our interviews, because really I believe that one of us represents all of us. And then I will also touch briefly on the language that we use, because I believe that we are supposed to be educating others. When people listen to interviews or watch or read, they are supposed to learn from the kind of questions that we ask and the language that we use. And then I'll also just say a couple of things about the total package, because I think that we should be looking at things from the point of view of our personal and corporate identity. Well, when we go out to conduct interviews, I would hope that we all make the effort to look good, neat, tidy, presentable. But I wonder how much we think about whether or not we sound professional. And sounding professional is not just about speaking clearly, although that's very important. It's also about having clear thoughts. Our thinking process needs to be orderly. And that speaks to good diction. It has been mentioned actually already on this webinar, but the choice of words and phrases, which is what diction is all about, is really important. And then I would want us to ask ourselves a few questions. Do we sound clear? Can people understand what we're saying? That, of course, speaks to elocution. Many a time we have to use microphones, and sometimes technology fails. At times, the microphones are muffled. So if you ask a question and you don't enunciate clearly, we don't hear the ends of the words, it's very likely and possible that people can actually misunderstand what you say. So you ask a question and you get a different answer because they've heard something different from what you intended to say. So we really need to, clarity is of utmost importance so that people can understand us. Well, I believe that even if you are a print journalist, if you go out to interview people, and people of all ages, backgrounds, all classes.
Water leave matter.
It's important for you to be able to pronounce your vowels and consonants properly. Of course, people's names and the names of places.
I get this picture from my phone before.
When we look at language,
I don't say well, first or second week, can I take that exact picture? That exact picture, not the first or second week.
Hello, participants, can you unmute her? Can you unmute Mrs. Oloyede's microphone? Please, can you unmute Mrs. Oloyede's microphone?
It's on mute.
Hear me now?
Yes, we hear you.
Okay, so I was talking about language and thinking in English. Whether we like it or not, the English happens to be, the nation's official language. And so if we are communicating in that language, it's very important for us to be able to express it properly. And we can't express it properly if in the first instance we automatically language. There is no way that we will not fall prey to translating from that language, whatever it is, into English. So it's important. Then, using the words that are appropriate, that blend with the subject matter, the person that you're going to interview, the topic that you're talking about, it's important that your language is appropriate. And do you even know what is the lingo? What are the politically correct statements or terms that go with that belong to the world of the person that you're going to interview? It's important. And then finally, I think I can talk about the package. Let me just say something briefly about the package. That package, and that word has been mentioned before, that is our identity. Are we representing a body, a station, a paper, a magazine? Even if we're representing ourselves, it's important that that there is credibility. And it's important that we actually reflect the mission and vision of our employers. Even if you happen to be self-employed, there is a point, there is a philosophy behind whoever has sent you, and the way you conduct yourself and the kind of questions that you ask, I believe should reflect that.
All right. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Ma. Thank you so much, Mrs. Oloyede. Thank you so much. We just have about 2 speakers, and then we go to the last session and we'll call it a day. I think I'll bring in 1 speaker here. Mr. Ekpu, I understand, is rejoining, and of course he's gonna, he's gonna be the final, the person that will give their all-round talk, and of course round it off. And of course, I'm calling on Mr. Shamshedeen Tiamuyi. He's the former deputy director of news. Just in about 3 minutes, he's gonna be talking to us. What should we expect? What should a journalist expect during interview? Mr. Tiamuyi, are you there? Mr. Tiamuyi, are you there? Okay, while we are waiting for Mr. Tiamuyi, we'll just call on Aro of the BBC training, to please just say something about this art of interview, because the BBC trained me for about, he was a chief trainer, the BBC trained me for about 3 years or 4 years, on various aspects of, journalism. So please, Mr. Aro, can you have the floor for about 3 minutes? And then we'll go for questions and answers. Yeah, we can hear you.
Hello? Okay.
Hello, Mr. Aro, I can hear you.
Hello. Good to be here. Good to be here.
Yes,
I don't know if I'll
you.
use up to 3 minutes because I didn't plan this. But what I like to say, I like a lot of things the speakers have said, and I hope people are taking note about that. But the key thing for me as a programs person is the listeners. Someone said something about you going for an interview, wanting to get sure that you get something out of that interview. It's good to ruffle shoulders. It's good to do a journalist information that the ordinary man on the street can use, or information that the policymakers can use to move the nation forward. So in planning our interviews, in planning things we want to do now, 2023 is coming. You're going to see a lot of people come out, a lot of politicians come out. People are going to be doing stuff. Now, journalists should start thinking from now. What are those policy issues? What are those things that ordinary people need to live better lives in Nigeria? How can we ask questions that will bring out these things? In the past elections we've had, and most interviews you see, even media chats nowadays, presidential media chats, you don't really find those kind of questions that would help us move. You just have questions that make a lot of noise, and what you see on most daily programs on radio is, oh, this person said this, that person said that. But what are those issues that are like? Or what are those issues that would help us? Think about the listener. What is it that you want to get out of this interview that is going to be beneficial to the listener and even you yourself? The other thing is that journalists, we don't like to talk about ourselves. Most people were talking about FFK, how we responded, which I don't think there's anyone anywhere that would think he responded well. That one is there. But even at that, when you go out for any interview, when you go out for any encounter, no matter what is done to you or what happens out of it, just look at yourself, reassess. You must do a lot of reassessment. You do a program, once you finish the program, don't say, oh, this program was nice today, I had so many callers. Don't say, oh, I had this kind of guest today, oh, it was fun. To check, is there something I could have done? We become. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Aro. Leonard is the chief trainer at the BBC initiative in Nigeria. Thank you so much. And then I will also...
Sorry, I left BBC last year as head of media development. I'm on my own now as a consultant. I set up radio and TV stations and do training.
Okay, I guess everybody's listening. Now, I want to call on, that is the second to the last speaker, Mr. Tiamuyi. Mr. Tiamuyi, are you there? Mr. Tiamuyi, are you there? Hello, Mr. Tiamuyi, are you there? Yes, we can hear you, sir. Yes, we can hear you. Please go on.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Go on. We are giving you 3 minutes to talk to us what a journalist should expect during an interview.
You can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
You can hear me?
Yes, sir. 3 minutes. What should a journalist expect when he goes out for interview as a newsman that you've done it for about 35 years?
Yeah, good afternoon. The issue is that every interview is purpose-driven. So before a reporter goes out, he has a reason for going out. So, and that is the aim of going out to get information. But to get this information, there are certain factors must follow. First of all, he has to create a rapprochement within the subject. So if he's not able to do that, he may not get it back from the subject. In other words, if he creates a hostile environment, ab initio, that influence is dead. That is one. Then the second one is that he must, he has a moral imperative to respect the subject. Now, no matter what you might have about the subject, he must not be biased. You must remember that the subject is his guest. He must treat with respect. That's not true. Then number three, somebody mentioned earlier on, that's research. You want to background information about the subject. It's very important. But not to overdo it, but then you have to do research information. That will help you to get enough information from the subject. It's an opportunity to do that. Then the other one is that now the interviewer must be able to listen to the subject, because the subject is what you want to get information from. You want to listen to him attentively. No matter what question he must be prepared, you must listen to him to get the best out of him. So it's not the answer to answer all the questions that's prepared. So you must listen to him so that can get the best out of the man. That is very important. The other one is that now that some subjects are very hard to get. Now the amount of mind that they are not to give more information. So the reporter must fall back on his expertise. Now, if possible, have to rephrase some of this question. Now, he may not rephrase immediately. He may ask other question. But so because he wants to obtain information from that, so I have to go back and rephrase that question again. We start actually offending the subject. It's very important. So with all this, I'm able to get what I want to get. But one thing is that he goes out for the purpose, and that purpose must be at the back of his mind. He must remain focused. You know, he must focus no matter what may happen during the meeting. It's very, very important. You must remain focused and make sure you get that information about what I choose. It's very important.
Yes, sir. So thank you so much for your time. Please let the panelists stand by, because it's going to be question and answer sessions right now. I want to, before I call on Mr. Ekpu, I don't know whether the journalist that our friend from Daily Trust is on right now. We want to give an opportunity, just about 2 minutes or 3 minutes, to say something to the platform here, so that others can also respond. Are you there, Mr. Etim? Is it Mr. Ayo? Hello? Okay, in the absence of Mr. Ayo, I don't know whether he's having technicality issues. Let's call on Mr. Ray Ekpu to just, sum up the whole thing. Hello? Is Mr. Ray Ekpu there? Hello? Is Mr. Ray Ekpu on the platform? Okay, while we are waiting for the response, I think we should unmute most of okay, let's unmute everybody's mic. Mr. Ray Ekpu, are you there? Hello? Okay, is the journalist from Daily Trust on right now? Okay, while we are waiting for them, let's have questions. I will just take about 3 questions and we'll be done, so that we'll just call it a day. Anyone with any question, the mic, the floor is open. Please direct your question to any of the panelists based on what he or she said.
Okay, hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Qasim Akinreti. I am actually a broadcast journalist, having worked with some reputable radio stations. I actually wanted to ask a question directed to Mrs. Bimbo Oloyede. I actually revere her very much. From childhood, been watching her on the TV and having to be under her for some time. I want to ask this question particularly to the aspect of pronunciation when it comes to presentation.
Okay, thank you very much.
Most of us.
Okay. You are asking. I want to believe she heard what you said, Mrs. O. Can you respond to the question?
No, she hasn't asked the question yet. Let her ask the question.
Okay, you are not done. Okay, go on.
No, she has not asked the question.
Okay, sorry about that. Go on.
Yes, please. So I'm actually going to ask her, what is the basic one should do? The basics one should do when it comes to pronunciation. What is one supposed to do to go the line of knowing that he or she is actually using the right pronunciation when it comes to presentation? That is my question to her.
Yes, I got your question to do with pronunciation. There is a basic format which I believe all broadcasters should adhere to. I think all broadcasters should learn the International Phonetic Association's guideline. They are international symbols that demonstrate, I think that's the right word to use, that demonstrates every single unit of sound in English. All the sounds of English are represented by the International Phonetics alphabet. And so if you can get hold of the Daniel Jones Pronunciation Dictionary, or if you just Google International Phonetics Association, you will see what the symbols are. All broadcast stations, actually, every studio, radio and TV, should all have that. Even print journalists, because, you know, as I said earlier, it's important for people to speak well so that they can be properly understood. But that is the guideline that I advise. That's the guideline that we were taught to use, and I don't think it has failed us.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I understand that Mr. Ray Ekpu is around now. Mr. Ray, are you there? Hello? Admin, have we confirmed that Mr. Ray Ekpu is on the platform? Okay, while we are still waiting for him, he showed up earlier. I don't know, maybe he's having technical issues. Please, can we have another question? Please, can you, admin, can you unmute everyone so that somebody can ask questions? Admin, please unmute everyone. Okay. Okay, please unmute everyone so that we can ask our questions.
Hello.
Okay, go on with your question. And of course, raise your hand if you have a question. Okay, go on.
The question I want to ask.
What is your name?
Okay, my name is Ekpu Ekpima.
Okay, from where?
Yes, Ekpu Ekpima. I used to write for Punch newspaper, but now on
okay, go on, sir. Okay, go on.
My question is that as a practicing journalist of many years, some of our colleagues don't know how to ask questions. Hello?
Some of your colleagues don't have what?
Yes, some of our colleagues don't know how to ask questions.
Okay.
Just as it's been said, some of them will bring very difficult questions at initial stage. I mean, when they are starting the interview. And most of the times, I noticed that the interviewers will be upset at their questions. And again, the issue of this brown envelope, because many organizations where they work don't pay them. So in fact, when I, like what happened in Akwa Ibom State some years back, when I was working here, when I was a state correspondent here, I saw some journalists going as far as they could to arrange seats for other participants. So in fact, it was so annoying that I didn't know what to say. And again, there is something that we call sensitivity. This one has to deal with private persons as well as public figures. You don't ask private persons the type of questions you ought to ask public figures, because public figures are always there for our interviews, to grant us interview. But private figures, you don't ask them question anyhow. Some of them you have to take permission before you ask them question. And such questions must be restricted to what is being discussed at that very moment. So when I listened to the question that the Daily Trust guy asked, it was so offensive that I did not know what to say. There were many journalists. What they did not say anything but to attack Fani-Kayode. I was listening to all of them. I said that these people don't even know what they're supposed to do. So another thing I also observed was that when I was looking at that video, I think that guy is a coordinator of that thing. The way the guy was blaming the journalist from Daily Trust was saying, don't you see your life? Don't you see your life? That is why I don't like inviting you to something like this. You people will not keep quiet. You ask unnecessary questions. I was just looking. And then at the end of the day, say you people should wait. Wait for what? Wait for maybe one cover, 5,000 to 2,000. So those are the things. Once media organizations don't take responsibilities to pay their staff salaries as well as other welfares, these type of things are likely to occur on daily basis.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Etim. We've heard it from a long-standing journalist also who has covered the breadth and length of this country for a great while. Now we are going to ask one. I'm going to take one more question. Then you have to raise your hand, and then after this, the panelists will have to say things. You know, you just give your final word. Please, the last question, you can do that by raising your hands, and then I will see you, or you ask directly. Yes. Okay, go on. Does anybody have any questions?
Hello?
Oh, there are lots of hands here.
Go ahead.
Okay, let's just take one. Okay, unmute everyone so that we can hear the question.
Everyone is on mute, but they have to unmute themselves personally.
Okay.
They can unmute themselves and
so
talk.
Can we hear the last question? Hello? Okay. I don't know. You have to do that yourself.
Hello.
Okay, go on.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Go on.
My name is Uyoko Uswa.
Okay.
Of the AKPC TV in your Akwa Ibom State.
Okay, welcome.
My question is this. Can you hear me?
Yes, go on. That's the last question. Go on, we can hear you.
Now, my question is this. What happens in a situation where the interviewee doesn't want to provide an answer to a particular question, even when it was asked courteously? Well, the person may not be offended by the question, but what happens when he or she doesn't want to provide an answer to that question? Thank you.
Okay, who are you directing the question to?
Well, no one really, but anybody could take it. Thank you.
Okay, please, any of the panelists can take that question up. Please, can any of the...
what was the question?
Okay, go on, answer.
What's the
question?
Go on,
answer. Please go on. What do you do when your subject does not want to reveal the answer? Go on.
Okay. Do I go ahead?
You put pressure on him.
Okay, Mr. Ray was on. Then after that, Professor Chuka would also answer that question finally. Okay, go on.
Yeah, you can reframe the question. You can interview somebody very evasive, and what you have to do is ask the question. If it doesn't answer, you rephrase it in another way, and keep pursuing until you get an answer. A few years ago, my colleagues in Newswatch and I interviewed a man called Babagana Kingibe, who was chairman of the SDP. And the information we had was that he wanted to be presidential candidate of the SDP. And we invited him for an interview. We spent 3 hours with him. We kept asking him, do you want to be chairman or presidential candidate of the APC? Or the SDP, and he said, no, if I have to do that, I don't have to come and tell you people at Newswatch and so on. We reframed the question 6 times. This man was very, very basic. He didn't give the answer. So you can meet a guy like that, but the important thing is, if at the end of the day he doesn't answer the question, the fact that you persisted, the fact that you asked the question in different ways says something to the reader when you reproduce the interview. It says something to him that the man is evasive, that the man has something to hide. So it's not a lost cause if he doesn't answer. If he doesn't answer, he has answered in some way, as far as the reader is concerned.
Okay, that's from Mr. Ray Ekpu. Please still hang around. We were waiting for you to make your comments so that you can also give your, your take, because you didn't give your take. We are going to,
excuse me, man. Why don't you allow me to talk right now so that I don't have any other issues? Can't you allow?
Okay, I don't think we'll have that. I don't think we'll have that issue again. I have spotted him right now. Let's also listen to Professor Chuka Onwumechili, Howard University, in the U.S., Washington, D.C.
Okay, I was going to say that
can you unmute Professor Chuka's mic?
Yeah, I think I'm unmuted.
It's unmuted. It's talking.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Professor Chuka, you have the floor.
Yeah, I think the question's being answered by the last speaker, actually. But in addition to that, I think going back to what I think Professor Ogweezy mentioned earlier, research helps here. If somebody is very evasive, you can actually provide additional information that's going to force an answer from that person. These are various strategies that can be used in trying to get an answer from somebody who's being evasive. So there are various tactics that you could use in order to get, to get an answer to it. Mm-hmm. Hello? Yeah, I just answered the question.
Still on? Yeah.
Okay.
Why are you on?
Yeah, I'm here.
Like something is wrong somewhere. Somebody just probably got off.
Hello? Okay, did he drop?
Probably, yes, it's back on. So let me meet him. Probably went off. He's talking, he's on mute. He doesn't know that's on mute.
Okay.
Hello, Professor Chuka, can you hear us?
We can hear you now while you were on mute. So
okay. All right. So we were saying that you can please answer the question and then we take the final slot from Mr. Reko and we'll call it a day.
Okay, I answered the question already.
Okay, you've answered the question already. Okay, yeah. All right. Can we have Mr. Reko finally, as he puts all the thoughts together, and then we'll just call it a day.
Okay, thank you very much. Hello, are you hearing me?
We hear you, sir.
Yes,
yeah,
we can hear you, sir.
Okay. About the Femi interview.
Yeah.
Well, not really an interview. It was a press conference, and I saw about 10, 12 journalists there, which means that one person may just have an opportunity to ask one question. So I guess Mr. Charles Ayo just thought that is the best question to ask a man like that.
Hello?
Is not known to hold any office at present, was going to make comments on those, pressing all of the governors up to about 5 or 6 days before he went to Cross River. And I noticed that the Cross River State branch of the NUJ described the group. They said the interview, the press conference was not properly organized. And it was not called by the NUJ in Cross River. So it was some kind of arrangee kind of press conference. I just saw about 10, 12 people there. And that is some of the, that is one of things, the nasty things that goes on in this profession in Nigeria today. Some groups organize another group. They will bring a few journalists together and arrange and collect money and do those things. That group that made Femi Fani-Kayode has been discredited by the NUJ in Cross River. So it is obvious that it was some kind of informal conference. And then the guy thought that was the best question to ask. Because this man is not known to be a billionaire, but he's going around inspecting projects. Nobody knows. Did he say he's going to contest in 2023? If and there is no office like inspector of projects. So I think I don't blame you for asking the question. It wasn't the wrong question. It wasn't asking the wrong question. It is not stated anywhere that you must always ask questions that interviewees will be comfortable with. It was up to Femi Fani-Kayode to answer the question properly. Who is bankrolling your tour? It could have said, who is sponsoring your tour? But it's the same thing. It goes to the same thing. And the point is that he has not been able to explain why he's wondering about going from one PDP state to another. Does he want to contest for the presidency of Nigeria, or does he want to be vice president in 2023, or is he making himself an inspector of projects? Because everywhere he goes, he inspects projects and makes pronouncements on those projects. He doesn't know whether they were well executed, whether the prices were inflated, the contracts were inflated. He just makes pronouncements, and in every case, he praised the state governors and so on and so forth. So I'm sure that the journalists were baffled about what he was doing going around PDP states. And whether he had he had a deep pocket to be able to sponsor his trips from place to place. Because the last time we knew he was actually doing something was in 2019 when he was fighting President Buhari 2015. And since then, not much has been heard about him, except that the EFCC have been running after him. He's been in and out of various courts. So I'm sure that the journalists there were wondering, what the hell is this man doing going from place to place? And he ought to have answered the question directly, and instead of erupting like a volcano. It is okay journalists must prepare well for people like him. You must understand the idiosyncrasies of whoever you are going to interview so that you can handle him properly. In Newswatch, we interviewed President Obasanjo several times. The last time we interviewed him, we asked him a question he didn't like. He just said, "Ray, that is a stupid question." I merely said to him, "Mr. President, please answer it." And then 3 questions later, he repeated it. "Ray, that is a stupid question." I had to tell him, "Mr. President, that is unprecedented." I expect journalists, I expect interviewers, journalists who go to interview people to be ready for anything, from the worst case scenario to the best case scenario, so that whatever comes, they can handle it. And whatever they're throwing at him, the journalist is not set aside to ask people only questions they are comfortable with. Questions they are comfortable with will never produce the answers that the public wants. The public, the journalist who goes to interview somebody is representing the public. The public cannot go out to interview him. The journalist is assigned to interview him. So the journalist must second guess the public, his reader, and say, oh, what would my reader want to know about Femi Fani-Kayode or General Obasanjo or President Buhari? You must second guess the reader. You say, this is what the reader would like to know. And then you ask appropriate questions and push and get appropriate answers. I think that's the point. The fact that the question didn't seem very friendly is not an issue. Questions are not supposed to be friendly. There are too many things hidden in this society. People do not want to reveal anything. So I belong to the prosecutorial school of journalism. You interview people, you exert pressure on them, otherwise you won't get what you are looking for. Oriana Fallaci, an Italian journalist, was very famous for that. Mike Wallace in the US is also famous for putting pressure on people. That is what is called adversarial journalism, adversarial interviewing. You can, I mean, on the other end, you have Larry King, Barbara Walters, who were very, very friendly to interview. Whatever method works for you, adopt it. And of course, it doesn't have to be just one method, because the people you meet are different. They come with different worldviews, they come with different positions, they come with different strategies. You must devise your own strategy to suit the occasion. If you were interviewing somebody like Obafemi Awolowo, if you prepare 10 questions, you will be short of questions because it was always brief, short and sharp. But if you were interviewing somebody like Obafemi, like Nnamdi Azikiwe, it was a man who liked to make long speeches. He would tell you long stories and so on and so forth. And you may have 10 questions, but you will be able to ask more than 2 or 3 questions, except you interrupt him. So there are different strategies for dealing with different people that you interview. But the important thing is for you to achieve the result that you want. Get the information out for the public, and that's it. Your job is done.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ekpu, a veteran print journalist, and of course, the co-founder of Newswatch magazine. Thank you so much. We are very grateful. And of course, we'll give the last the panelists to say something for about 5 seconds, your last take, or 1 minute, so that we can call it a day. I call on Professor Chuka to please just say something, and then just briefly, and then we call it a day.
Well, let me first of all say thank you to Ray for what he said. I really like that, because this is something that we often lose sight of. In this job, you're not there to pander to the interest of the person you're interviewing. You're serving the public. That's where your first interest lies. So it doesn't matter whether Femi-Kayode likes the question or not. That's his problem. The thing is, it's the public you're providing information to. One of the things that I also point out here is that there is something where antagonistic journalism is rising, and that's important for us to understand. When we talk about this antagonistic style of journalism, you think about what does it do? One of the things that it does is that it attracts a lot of viewers, which is very interesting to the media houses. And as long as you're getting that information that the public needs, that's what's important. And let us also understand, although we didn't really go into this, I think maybe I'm just putting this up there in case you're going to do some other shows later, is also for us to think about a show that talks about the future of journalism. Because we talk about this journalism, and what I'm listening to is traditional journalism. Traditional journalism is dying. We are having challenges to journalism. I was just looking at data the other day. How many people really watch these traditional news sites that we are talking about? The numbers are going down. people are going to social media. Why are they going to social media? That's the question we've got to ask ourselves. So I think there should be a show that you do that addresses this aspect. But let me just stop right there.
Thank you so much, sir. We will consider that.
That's really good.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. While you're still hanging on, I'm also calling on Professor Des Wlson. Professor Des Wlson, University of Uyo, that's Arts Communication Department, Communication Arts rather. Prof, are you there? Just say a line and we're done. Hello, Professor Wlson. Please, admin, can you unmute his mic so that he can say something?
Every mic is on mute, so he can actually unmute himself. That's how the way set it up. Yeah, you can unmute yourself.
Okay, let's also, okay, Professor Abigail Ogweezy, can you give your final thoughts?
Thank you. I'll say I align myself with the submissions of the earlier, the speakers who spoke earlier, Professor Onwumechili and Mr. Ekpu. The reality is that when you're going for an interview to interview a news source, you must be prepared. I add that again, that you must be prepared. Always stay calm. Like Mr. Ekpu said, when you have the heat, that is the news itself. Because sometimes when you ask questions that are probing, some of them get angry, but it's to continue to rephrase and to remain calm because you're out to get something. And also make sure that you are well prepared. And that means you need to do a lot of research before going. It's like you're going for an exam. It's like a conversation, but it could turn the other way around. And so you must wear the motto of a scout person, always be prepared. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much, Professor Abigail Ogweezy, the first female professor of mass communication in University of Lagos. Now we also have Dr. Grace Nwagbara. Are you there? You want to give a final thought to the conversation today? Hello, Professor Nwagbara, are you there?
He's there. He needs to unmute, he needs to unmute himself.
Okay, he needs to unmute herself. Okay, it's okay.
Okay, it's on now. It's on mute now. Unmute, yeah.
Okay.
Hello, Prof. Nwagbara. Can you hear?
Yes, I can hear you.
Your final thoughts, ma'am.
Okay, we have said so many things. Our colleagues have said so many things. I just want to add that we have moved from, as Professor Chuka had said, moved from the traditional space to the digital space. And at the digital space, we have a lot of junks, so much information, but the question is how reliable are those things that people churn out on a daily basis? And that is where we go back to the journalists. If you also must operate in that digital space, please present authentic and reliable information. Credibility is it. Sometimes people are in a hurry to say whatever they want to say without authenticating whatever they have as information. So there is need to go back. That's why we're emphasizing on research. There is need to go back and then find out whether what you're putting out to the public is actually the truth. What you're putting out to the public, they can rely on it. Most people don't go, generally the public won't go with you to gather information. You're the journalist who goes out. They rely on what you say. So if you bring false information to them, then you're actually misinforming the public and you're actually misleading the public. So I pray that our journalists will learn to, as they are moving into this digital space where everybody is both generating information and then also consuming information at the same time, that they will be able to know how to remove the trash from the main thing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ma. Then Professor Des Wlson is standing by. Professor Wlson, are you there? We want to have your last take, your thought. That's your last thoughts. Just in a jiffy, so we can call it a day. Professor Chuka Onwumechili just finished, and of course, Professor Abigail Ogweezy just finished her thoughts, and of course, followed by Associate Professor Grace Nwagbara.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yes, we want to have your
Hello,
final thoughts. Yes, we want to have your final thoughts on concerning today's conversation.
I just want to say that while I agree with many of the views expressed in this webinar, I want to note that it is difficult. Hello? I want to say that it is difficult for one. Well, first of all, let me say that I agree with Ray that you can adopt different tactics. But when you have a situation where you go and start with the very hard one, and then you don't get what you wanted, then I don't know whether you can count that. You can say that you have succeeded. So, well, again, I look at all of the issues that have come. Why are we so hard on this particular case? There are many situations where our members have had their cameras broken, their heads crushed, and all that, and yet we have not made as much noise as this one. Where the person said, was reported to have said that was a stupid question. So I think we really don't have to make so much noise about this one, because it's something that we could easily have dealt with by complaining directly to the offender, and then things would have just gone well with all of us.
Thank you so much, Prof.
Hello?
I think yes, thank you so much. We got that. We are going to do that. Like Professor Chuka Onwumechili just mentioned something about the traditional media dying. I remember, presenting a paper at Washington, D.C. That was last year on the about the traditional media dying out, and of course the new media, replacing the old media gradually to some extent in terms of news breaking. And I remember that Mr. Ray Ekpu, I think this year, talked about that bloggers are not real journalists. So we might have to bring Mr. Ray Ekpu back, and they were, on the social media, a lot of people cried, a lot of bloggers and all of that. And, I think he said that what they are doing is just courage to do nonsense, something like that, and bringing out fake stories, just like Professor Nwagbara said. So there's need to also look at that. And of course, I'm also calling on Mrs. O, that is Mrs. Bimbo Oloyede, to also give our final thoughts. Mrs. Oloyede, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you very much. I think all I want to say really is that in presentation, we say that you are as good as your last presentation.
Yes,
and so for me, it's not enough to go out and conduct an interview, whether it's good or bad. When you come back, the job does not end, with the submission of your interview. I think it's important for a review to be done. It's important for you to get an independent opinion as to whether or not you actually did do a good job. And even if people will not tell you the truth, I think we ought to be able to tell ourselves the truth. We know if we've done a good job or not, so that when we go out again, we know what the pitfalls are, and we ensure that we do a better job. Reviewing, I think, is very important, and that's what I think I would stress at this point.
All right, thank you so much, sir. The chairman of NUC, NUJN, that's Nigerian Union of Journalists, Lagos State. Please, that's Dr. Qasim Akinreti. Please, can you give your final thoughts? Is Dr. Akinreti still on? Okay, what about Engineer Abiola Ajibola? Please, can you give your final thoughts? The former director National Broadcast Academy. That's a training arm of the Federal Radio Corporation of Nigeria.
Okay, thank you very much for this webinar. I want to say on the final note that training is very important to all our journalists. The ethics of the profession must always be very important. And the tenets of the profession also must be held very important. The issue of objectivity, balancing, and being factual, all these are very important, and I just pray that our journalists begin to go by these tenets.
Okay, sir.
Also important is the issue of the fade-off of the traditional style of media practice. The current situation we are now call for a lot of training, so that if our journalists want to play along with the current mode of the profession, they need to put themselves on constant training and retraining. So thank you very much for the program. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And then finally, there's the last person, Mr. Tiamuyi. Can you say your last? This is the former Director News, Radio Nigeria, Ikoyi, Lagos. Mr. Tiamuyi, are you there? Okay, I think he's not there, or maybe he's struggling with his stuff. And then let's call on, okay, I say the last person, the former BBC trainer, Ray Aro Leonard. Please, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, please, can you give your final thoughts?
In addition to what I said earlier on, I would like to say we should always look for, when going for interviews, we should always look for something different. You flip through stations, read newspapers, even on social media, you find the same stories, the same questions all over. In 2003, I interviewed Ray Ekpu, and I was able to get out some unique things about his time at Unilag, which a lot of people did not know. And when I played it on radio in Abuja, a lot of people were like, wow, we never knew this. So let's always look for something different, a different angle. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for your time. I want to thank the veteran journalist, other print journalist, Mr. Ray Ekpu, the co-founder of the defunct News Watch magazine. Thank you so much for coming on board. And of course, Professor Chuka Onwumechili, the professor of communication at Howard University, Washington, D.C., Professor Wlson, Department of Communication at University of York, Professor Abigail Ogweezy, the first female professor of mass communication in University of Lagos, that's mass communication department. Then Associate Professor Grace Nwagbara, Engineer Ajibola, then the AUJ chairman in Lagos State, Mrs. Oloyede, and of course, Mr. Tiamuyi, and of course, Aro, the former BBC trainer. Thanks so much for coming, and of course, some of our students that joined from University of Lagos, and of course, the National Broadcast Academy, the Lagos Business School, and of course, those that also joined from Lagos State Polytechnic. I understand that some students also from University of Uyo, and all those that joined via Facebook and all of that. Thank you so much. And of course, next time, we'll let you know what we are treating next. God bless you. Bye-bye.
Very same here.